Hello, and welcome to the Sleepy Storyteller. Welcome to our quiet sanctuary, a place carved out of time just for you. Find a comfortable position, letting your body feel heavy and supported by the bed beneath you. As you begin to let go of the day, breathe in softly. And as you breathe out, release the thoughts, the worries, the lists, let them drift away like clouds in a gentle breeze. Chapter 1, A Whisper of White. The night is young, yet already the world outside your window glows with that unmistakable pale radiance that only fresh snow can summon. Lamps along a quiet lane halo themselves in hazy coronas. Roof tiles, once sharp and angular, have grown soft-edged and tender, like loaves rising slowly in a moonlit bakery. Inside, the fire has settled into a contented murmur. The last crackle of resin has faded, leaving behind red coals that pulse with a steady heartbeat of warmth. You draw the curtain half a handbreadth wider, just enough to watch the next flake arrive. There it is, small, unhurried, almost shy, tilting this way and that as an invisible breeze tastes its edges. In the faint orange glow of the street lamp, it looks less like ice and more like a living spark, here to carry a gentle secret from the heavens down to the soil. Consider how little weight that crystal truly bears. Scientists would tell us it measures roughly 1/10,000th the mass of a common raindrop. Yet when multiplied by billions, the flakes gather into drifts tall enough to hush an entire countryside, to quiet a bustling city street, to persuade migrating geese to pause upon a glassy pond and rethink their schedule. 1, 2, 3 more descend. A hush collects in the corners of the room, the way dust used to gather before winter swept everything pure. You feel that hush settle across your shoulders now, an invisible shawl woven from cold light and slower breathing. Out on the lane, car tires no longer hiss along wet asphalt. Their rubber meets velvet, and they obey the season's request for silence. Even the neighboring house, whose tiny dog usually greets every passing shadow with shrill enthusiasm, seems to recognize that the first true snowfall is a ceremony, not to be interrupted by barking or bustle. Imagine, for a moment, you could follow a single flake upward, reversing time. It would lift from the powdery blanket, retrace its wandering swirl through the chilly corridor of air, pass again into the cloud that birthed it, and there dissolve into a faint vapor lost among trillions of siblings. Keep rewinding, and that vapor would loosen, molecule by molecule, until at last those two delicate hydrogen atoms separate from their patient oxygen companion. Released, they would drift as solitary dancers, waiting for the next invitation to gather, to embrace, to crystallize. Now let the arrow of time resume its natural direction. The molecules meet, greet one tiny speck of dust, perhaps the soot from a distant forest fire, perhaps a salt grain once tossed skyward by a crashing Atlantic wave. And together they begin the quiet work of becoming. They arrange themselves in tidy, mutually agreed upon angles, six-fold, no quarrel, no confusion. Here in the chilled vapor nursery, order arises out of freedom and beauty from blankness. The newborn arms lengthen, sprout secondary branches, then tertiary filaments so fine that even many microscopes would fail to trace them. The sky outside your window is now thick with these diamond cousins, all tumbling through the lamplight like pages torn from a silver book. The sight slows your thoughts the way a lullaby slows a child's pulse. A yawn flutters at the edge of your throat, not because you are bored, but because your body recognizes the dream-like cadence of falling snow and prepares to match it. Somewhere far in the distance, a church bell marks the hour, its note softened, clothed in winter wool. The sound lingers, bends, and quietly dissolves. In that lingering hush, you become aware of your own breathing, gentle, rhythmic, echoing the soft sift of powder upon rooftops. If you close your eyes, you can still feel the snow's presence. There's a rare brightness behind closed lids, as though the world itself were wrapped in a lantern's gauze. Memories drift in first childhood sled rides, then a favorite knitted scarf, then that one unforgettable night when you stepped outside and the world seemed utterly new, as though humanity had been given a blank sheet of paper on which to start again. It is no wonder that countless poets chose winter as the season of reflection. The bright intensity of summer distracts. Spring bursts with plans. Autumn brims with harvest and color. But winter invites us inward, bidding us look not at the outward blaze of life, but at its quiet embers. The philosopher Lao Tzu once compared the highest virtue to water, yielding, formless, yet able to carve valleys from stone. Snow is water at its most delicate extreme. Yielding? Certain. Formless? Hardly. Each flake is an architectural marvel, a weightless cathedral constructed in real time by temperature, humidity, and the unbreakable geometry of hydrogen bonds. Johannes Kepler, whose eyes scanned planets, paused one wintry morning in 1611 to stare instead at a flake that had settled upon his coat sleeve beside the Charles Bridge. He found himself mystified. Why 6? Why always 6? In his subsequent treatise, Strina Seu Denive Sexangula, he wrote that perhaps nature delighted in economy, spheres packed tightly in hexagonal arrays. He was, in essence, sketching the first hints of atomic theory while standing in slush. Kepler's flake melted long ago, but his curiosity endures, as does ours. We still ask why the branches form the patterns they do. Modern high-speed cameras, coupled with freezing chambers and supercomputers, track growth pattern by pattern. Researchers print digital templates, line them beside photographs, and declare, with scientific satisfaction, that the mathematics hold. And yet, when they step back from their charts, they almost always pause, smile, and whisper what every child already knows, that a snowflake is, beyond the numbers, simply beautiful. And beauty slows time. It steadies pulse. It tells the anxious heart, here is proof that the universe remembers grace. You notice your shoulders sinking a fraction deeper into the mattress. The blanket feels heavier, not oppressive, but protective, the way a snowbank protects a burrowed hair from wind. In many Nordic villages, elders teach that the best way to endure winter is to treat every flake as an ally. It falls, they say, not to punish, but to cushion the earth against cold's cruelest claws. Those claws famously spare the violets and lilies sleeping beneath the drifts. Soil scientists have measured the temperature just a handspan below fresh powder and found it miraculously mild, often hovering near freezing even when night air plunges far lower. Snow is an insulator, a quiet guardian. The fragile becomes the protector. Such contradictions warm the imagination. What else in this universe is both delicate and formidable at once? Perhaps kindness. Perhaps a gentle word. Perhaps the very story trickling through your ears now. Light is down, yet decidedly powerful enough to alter the rhythm of your night. The flakes continue, a slow parade. Some join distant drifts, others alight upon winter-hard roses. Still others dissolve midair when they stray into the faint exhalation of a chimney's plume. They come, they shine, they vanish. Yet their collective legacy remains, a brighter night, a softer world. That world invites more dreaming. So together, we follow one particular flake as it touches the crown of an evergreen. For a breathless second it rests, perfectly outlined against the near black needles. Then the slightest tremor, perhaps the settling weight of its own tiny mass, nudges it loose. Down it slides along the polished green, gathering 2 or 3 friends, until they tumble over the edge and land upon the white carpet below. There they join a silent congress of crystals undertaking democracy hour by hour, consenting to become a single shining landscape. From your window seat you can almost hear their whispering oath. Together we are the hush. Together we erase yesterday's footprints. Together we prepare a path for tomorrow's. The room's fireside is a log shifting deeper into ember. Outside, the lane becomes a ribbon unsuitable for traffic and perfect for reverie. Here and there, porch lights blink out as neighbors choose bed over wakefulness. Somewhere a book is closed, a kettle stilled, a cat curled. You are not alone in listening to snowfall. 1,000 others cradle the same hush at this moment. Some miles away, perhaps, an elderly astronomer steps onto his balcony, lifts a mug of cocoa, and marvels that the gentle static drifting past his telescope once served as blueprint for galaxies. But talk of galaxies belongs to later chapters. For now we dwell close, intimate, grounded in the simple miracle of white upon wood, white upon stone, white upon the nocturne landscape of your unwinding mind. Breath by breath, the scene grows even slower. It is as if time follows the same rule as the flake. Cooled, it crystallizes into stillness. That stillness gives the heart permission to soften its beat, the eyelids permission to graze one another, the thoughts permission to fall gently like powder until they rest, indistinguishable from the blankets of silence forming around them. In this softened world, Shakespeare's line comes to visit. Thou hast no figures nor no fantasies which busy care draws in the brains of men. Therefore thou sleeps so sound. Snow, like the personification of sleep in that sonnet, erases the busy figures. It flattens jagged roads, fills potholes, hides imperfections, renders the noisy, lumpy world briefly immaculate. Somewhere in that blankness awaits a story older than memory, a blank page upon which the dawn will write its pastel first light. But before dawn has its say, night still holds many secrets, molecular, historical, mythological, waiting in the wings like patient actors. We will let them speak one at a time quietly, so as not to wake any dream already begun. And so, dear traveler of twilight, Chapter 1 draws its curtain. The world beyond your window is now thoroughly transformed. Even if you stood outside in bright daylight tomorrow, shovel in hand, you would not find two flakes the same. Yet they have gathered into a single garment, draping field and roof alike. Diversity joining to craft unity, one of nature's favorite lullabies. Rest a moment longer in that thought, and when you're ready, we shall tiptoe upward, back into the cloud banks, to explore how cosmic dust and celestial water conspire to sketch every crystalline arm. Chapter 2, Cosmic Dust and Celestial Water. High above those lamplit streets, the cloud's interior is neither dark nor light, but a delicate translucence, a pearl suspended in the upper sky. Inside this pearl, water vapor roams freely, each molecule a restless pilgrim seeking communion. Temperature here hovers just below freezing, the sweet spot in which molecules dream of stillness, yet tremble with residual dance. Floating among them are grains of dust, some volcanic ash, some pulverized shell from ancient seas, some carbon shed by comets older than Earth itself. One grain, perhaps no wider than a single bacterial cell, spins lazily, indifferent to the slow swirl of the cloud. But then a molecule of water knocks politely, finds traction, locks itself by hydrogen bonds, and sighs out a minuscule gasp of latent heat. High above those lamplit streets, the cloud's interior is neither dark nor light, but a tender translucence, the color of a closed pearl. Inside this quiet womb, water vapor roams freely, each molecule a restless pilgrim seeking communion. Temperature here hovers just below freezing, the sweet threshold where trembling motion and crystalline stillness coexist like dancers sharing one slow waltz. Drifting among the vapor are grains of dust, tiny, ancient, and far-traveled. One mote may be volcanic ash lofted by a forgotten eruption. Another might be salt spray twice blown across oceans. A third could be carbon shed from a comet older than any mountain range. They spin and tumble, unburdened by weight, waiting for purpose. Now choose one speck, so small that 10,000 could rest upon the head of a single pin. For a timeless moment, it drifts alone. Then a single water molecule knocks, finds purchase, clasps the grain with two electrostatic arms, and sighs out a whisper of heat. That heat, all but immeasurable, curls away, leaving the new pair fractionally colder than before. Cold begets invitation. Another molecule arrives, and another, each exhaling a miniature ghost of warmth, each cooling the tiny community further until the entire cluster shivers into solidity. In that instant, the hexagon's first blueprint outlines itself in silent light. Why a hexagon? It is geometry written into the very bones of water. When two hydrogen atoms embrace an oxygen, the angle between their arms is almost exactly 104.5 degrees. As many such molecules clasp, their V-shaped forms settle into hexagonal symmetry, the most economical arrangement, filling space without strain or gap. Imagine gazing down at a snowflake's earliest moment, watching as 6 pathways emerge from a single hub, like spokes upon a wheel drawn by invisible draftsmen. The hub thickens. The spokes lengthen, each side mirroring its opposite with eerie fidelity. Branches sprout from branches, repeating the 60-degree choreography. Inside the cloud, countless crystals begin this quiet construction at once. Some will remain simple plates no wider than a strand of silk. Others will grow ornate, fern-like dendrites flaunting combs and scrolls as elaborate as any cathedral rose window. Everything depends on the precise balance of humidity, temperature, and motion. Picture now how a gentle updraft lifts our crystal seed a little higher into colder air. Supersaturated vapor rushes toward its edges, clinging eagerly and pushing each tip outward. A downdraft follows, guiding the flake into a layer marginally warmer, just warm enough to blur the tips, adding tiny rounded knobs. Then caught again by a swirling eddy, it ascends once more, where sharpened cold redefines every curve into points of lace. Each journey through these microclimates is recorded in ice the way tree rings store summers and droughts. Later, when a scientist views the flake beneath the scope, every ridge and sidearm will tell the story of the sky's changing moods. Yet for all the rigor of chemistry involved, something softer pervades the scene, a hush of reverence. The molecules, dust grains, and tiny exhalations of latent heat feel less like a reaction and more like a song in slow crescendo. Consider, too, the journey of that dust grain before it met its watery companions. It may have begun life in the heart of a red giant star, forged during helium fusion, then flung into interstellar dark by supernova's final cry. For millions of years it drifted, sampling nebular winds, until gravity folded it into the newborn solar system, where it wove through planetary orbits like loose embroidery. Eventually, some capricious wind of our own world inhaled it, lifting it skyward among flocks of migrating birds crossing continents, rising through tropospheric layers until at last it entered this cloud, ready to serve as the seed of winter lace. In this way, every snowflake is a small archive, not just of local weather, but of cosmic history. It is starlight cooled into geometry. It is proof that the vastness of space and the intimacy of a silent backyard share common ground in a speck of dust. Pause here. Let that thought perch lightly upon your mind. The quilt of white that will greet you at dawn is stitched from materials older than Earth itself. Each flake carries the memory of suns long extinguished, towns never built, forests never rooted, futures never dreamed. And tonight, they settle upon your eaves and windowsill as casually as petals. Now return your gaze to the crystal we have followed. Its 6 arms have matured. They reach nearly 1/10 of a millimeter from core to tip, a miniature snow star ready for departure. Around it, sibling crystals coalesce, and the cloud begins to feel a collective heaviness, a faint ache of promised precipitation. Gravity issues its gentle invitation. The crystals drift downward in slow spirals, the way maple seeds twirl from autumn branches. Air resistance becomes a cushion. Though they fall, they never truly plummet. Instead, they descend as though reluctant, savoring each corridor of atmosphere they traverse. Within these corridors, more encounters await. Supercool droplets, liquid water chilled below freezing, may collide with our flake and flash freeze against its surface, thickening the arms. A passing ribbon of drier air might shave a facet, polishing it to silvery gloss. Minute by minute, the crystal approaches the lower troposphere, where you, perhaps wrapped in blankets, listen to its story without yet knowing it exists. If you step outside an hour from now with palms outstretched, you might catch this very traveler, admire its lacework for 3 breaths, before your warmth dissolves it back into simple water. Yet dissolution does not end the journey. It only folds one chapter into the next. Meltwater will seep into soil, nourish roots, trickle to rivers, enter oceans, evaporate, ascend, and one winter night freeze anew. The cycle is patient, far outlasting kingdoms, languages, even mountain ranges. Water is the Earth's tacit historian, recording epics not in ink, but in phase changes. Liquid, vapor, crystal. You may feel just now a quiet gratitude rising. Gratitude for the unseen choreography above, for the cosmic dust that volunteered to become a platform for beauty, for the water that consented to become snow so you might experience this hush. Allow that gratitude to settle in your chest like a lamp of soft light. It warms without disrupting slumber. It glows without glare. Across cultures, water in its frozen form has often symbolized purity, renewal, even rebirth. The Shinto shrine maidens of ancient Japan swept snowy courtyards at dawn, believing each flake carried misfortune away like ash carried on wind. In certain Himalayan monasteries, monks greeted the first winter storm with silent bows, acknowledging the mountain spirit's white blessing. And you, listening now, inherit those gestures. Perhaps you tilt your head slightly, offering an unspoken nod to the unseen artisans shaping lattices miles overhead. Soon, Chapter 2 will guide our flake out of its cloud forge and onto the wider canvas of open sky, where wind currents paint elaborate invisible highways. Before we follow, take one last lingering look at the cradle it leaves behind, an ethereal nursery glowing with the softest silver, alive with crystals in every stage of becoming, each one a star rehearsing its descent into your waiting dreams. When you are ready, we will drift with it downward into colder, clearer air, entering Chapter 3, where the alchemy of temperature layers sculpts every branch and blade of ice into unique identity. Chapter 3, the alchemy of cold. Down we glide with our newborn crystal, leaving the velvet womb of cloud for the open vault of midnight sky. At first the air seems empty, but in truth it is a quiet amphitheater reverberating with invisible currents. Some eddies ascend, some sink, some twist sideways in elaborate arabesques, each one a sculptor waiting to leave its signature upon the flake. Only moments after departure, the crystal meets its first sculptor, a tier of air 3 degrees warmer than the cloud. To the human skin, such a rise would feel faint, but to ice it is transformative. Tiny ridges along every branch soften, rounding into bead-like nodes. The surface becomes glass-slick, reflecting moonlight in flashes, so brief they vanish before the eye can truly claim them. Almost instantly, an updraft hoists our traveler higher again. The warmth falls away, replaced by a bracing chill of -12 degrees Celsius. Now water vapor rushes toward the branch tips with renewed vigor, freezing the bead nodes into fine, sword-slender points. The flake looks less like lace now and more like a 6-pointed star wrought from spun glass. Scientists call this ceaseless alternation of fashioning and refashioning the morphology diagram, a map showing which temperatures give rise to plates, which to columns, which to dendrites. At -2 degrees Celsius, simple hexagonal plates softly expand. At -5 degrees Celsius, thin needles sprout like frost on a window pane. Between -12 degrees Celsius and -16 degrees Celsius, the grandest dendrites blossom, each arm burgeoning with side branches finer than spider silk. Below -30 degrees Celsius, the growth slows so dramatically that crystals remain minimalist, tiny strict prisms, as though the cold itself counseled austerity. Our flake, riding the elevator wind, will visit several of these neighborhoods before it reaches the ground. Consider each layer a different gallery in nature's airy museum. In Gallery 1, bevels are polished. In Gallery 2, branches filigree. In Gallery 3, hollow channels tunnel through the core, reducing weight and adding sparkle. The way medieval stonemasons carved tracery into cathedral walls, both for grace and for structural economy. Now, a lateral gust ushers the crystal sideways, miles from where it first emerged. Below, the rooftops belong to another village entirely. The wind is not careless. It is curator of distribution, ensuring that fields, forests, rivers, and peaks all receive their appointed share of winter lace. Along the flake's journey, supercooled droplets, liquid water suspended below freezing, collide and freeze instantly to its lattice. This process, called accretion, thickens the arms with frosty rime, as though the crystal had donned a cloak of faint mist. Rime flakes lose some of their sharp detail, trading elegance for endurance. Aerodynamic roughness helps them tumble more slowly, gifting them extra seconds of airtime, extra moments to catch moonlight and whisper silver down upon the dozing earth. While we drift, let your awareness notice your own body's temperature layers. Nearest the skin, the quilt traps a hush of warmth. A few centimeters farther, cooler air hovers. Beyond that, the room's ambient chill balances the soft exhalations of ember and breath. Each stratum shapes your comfort just as surely as every atmospheric layer sculptures the flake. In mountain lore, old guides speak of the breathing snow. They swear that if you camp high enough, you can hear a living exhale when the night wind pauses. Tiny puffs and cracks as the surface expands and settles with temperature swings. Modern instruments confirm the phenomenon. Snowfields do emit minute acoustics as trapped air pockets adjust to shifting cold. Even stillness is never fully still. Our snowflake now drifts through a rarefied corridor where humidity dips. Sublimation nibbles delicately at its surface, sanding edges with invisible abrasives. Nothing in nature is exempt from erosion, not even the thing made only hours ago. Yet see how the design remains unmistakable, six-fold, balanced, serene. Perfection does not require permanence. It merely requires the courage to exist, however briefly. In 1936, the physicist Yuki-Onna began cultivating designer snowflakes in a refrigerated lab atop the Hokkaido University Physics Building. By altering humidity and temperature by fractions, he coaxed crystals into plates, needles, dendrites at will, finally declaring, "Snowflakes are letters sent from the sky." Our flake is such a letter, written in a language both exact and enigmatic, addressed tonight to you. We sink lower, into air that smells faintly of pine resin and distant wood smoke. Street lamps appear beneath, their auras rosy halos muffled by the gentle haze of falling crystals. A nearby flake brushes ours, joins flank to flank for a few seconds, then separates. Snow's version of a casual greeting on a winter sidewalk. Sometimes such greetings last longer, producing aggregate clusters called snow stars. Other times, a subtle electrostatic repulsion ensures each flake preserves its singular outline until the final landing. Look closely. Our crystal bears translucent striations resembling fingerprints. They were etched during brief pauses in vapor supply. Tiny recessions that mark time as rings mark a pine. To a trained meteorologist, these striations reveal not only humidity changes but wind speeds, even hints of pollution content in the parent cloud. The flake is diary and seismograph all at once. A gentle eddy now tilts the crystal edgeways. For a heartbeat, the flake becomes a miniature sail, catching the invisible breeze, drifting laterally over a frozen pond. Moonlight, bouncing off the pond's glassy surface, illuminates the underbelly of the flake, revealing optical wonders unseen from above. Microscopic prisms, scattering pale rainbows that shimmer and vanish quicker than thought. Light itself, of course, is a fellow traveler with snow, weaving through crystals to create halos, sundogs, and perhelia that once made Norse sailors swear the sky held two extra suns, guarding Odin's throne. One day, further along our journey tonight, we will explore those legends. But for now, the algebra of ice and light merely paints a silent spectacle for owls and dreaming children. Lower still we drift into the scent-rich boundary layer, where chimneys exhale comfort into the calm. Here the air is warmer by a few shy degrees. Edges of the crystal bead again, and a satin glaze begins to form, a warning that landing approaches. Snowflakes prefer to arrive wearing their finest. Below lies a field rimmed by birches. Their pale trunks stand like silent harp strings, waiting for dawn to play them gold. Our flake aims, though aim is too purposeful, a word for the slow destiny that guides it. Better to say the flake succumbs, yields, surrenders to gravity's lullaby. Down, down, and softly it meets the earth. There's no jolt, no sound, no sign save one gentle sparkle as it nestles among fellow travelers. For a fleeting interval, the flake's pattern remains immaculate, a jeweled glyph upon the broader manuscript of snow. Then the ever-so-slight warmth radiating upward from soil kisses its underside. The tips relax, microscopic bonds loosen, and individuality diffuses into collective peace. Yet do not grieve the passing. Dissolution is simply another verse. The water will sleep until sunbeams arrive to lift it skyward once more, restarted, ready to weave another hexagon, perhaps centuries hence, perhaps tomorrow. In the hush that follows landing, let your thoughts emulate that surrender. Feel each worry as a stray molecule of vapor, condensing briefly upon your mind, then melting, absorbing, and passing away. You are the meadow. Let the flakes of thought fall, shimmer, and disappear into quiet sameness, leaving only a soft, luminous calm. With Chapter 3 gently settled, we turn next to Chapter 4, where we shall lean close to the magnifying lens of imagination and explore the exacting artistry of six-pointed symmetry, its physics, its history, its secret metaphors for a balanced life. Chapter 4, Six-Pointed Symmetry. Let us draw nearer now, as though peering through an old brass hand lens held steady in winter moonlight. Beneath the curved glass, the delicate architecture of a single snowflake rises into clarity. 6 arms arrayed like spokes upon a celestial wheel, each arm repeating itself in mirror devotion. The ice slips from center to tip and back again, entranced by duet after duet of perfect balance. Why 6? It is the quiet verdict of geometry written in side water's smallest gesture. The hydrogen atoms of every H2O molecule cling to their oxygen at an angle just shy of 105 degrees. Pack millions of those gentle angles together, and they insist, almost shyly, upon a hexagon. Nothing showy, nothing forced. Merely the simplest way for each molecule to keep respectful distance while holding fast to its neighbors. 6, therefore, is water's signature. The autograph it leaves whenever cold invites it to crystallize. Yet sixfold order is not snow's secret alone. Look farther afield, and the natural world seems fond of the hexagon's quiet efficiency. Bees, those golden geometers of summer, sculpt hives into honeycombs. Endless corridors of 6-sided rooms sturdy enough to cradle their sweet alchemy. On rocky beaches, basalt cliffs sometimes cool into long columns whose cross-sections form perfect hexagons, as though Earth itself once froze like water, fracturing along lines of 60 degrees. Even the compound eyes of dragonflies are mosaics of hexagonal lenses, giving the insect a wide, seamless vision with minimum material. Within this echo of shapes lies a lesson whispered through eons. Nature favors patterns that waste nothing. A circle may enclose more area with less edge, but circles cannot meet without leaving gaps. Squares meet tidily, yet stretch their joints in unequal tension. The hexagon balances area, perimeter, and fit with almost mystical grace. To contemplate one is to glimpse efficiency masquerading as art. Close your eyes now and imagine standing in a silent observatory made entirely of ice. Its walls are not brick nor stone, but interlocking snowflakes magnified to cathedral scale. Above, a dome of 6-pointed windows filters starshine into pale mosaics across the floor. Each step you take sends soft prisms of light skimming over vaulted arches that, if traced, would resolve into nothing more than repeated angles of 60 degrees, blooming outward like frost on glass. As you wander those imagined halls, feel how symmetry soothes the restless mind. Neurologists suggest that the brain spends less effort parsing balance forms, freeing attention for reflection, for memory, for dreams. This is why mandalas calm, why rose windows in Gothic cathedrals elevate, why the quiet geometry of snow at night can hush a racing pulse. Balance outside the body invites balance within. The ancients, armed with keen observation but lacking microscopes, nevertheless intuited meaning in sixfold forms. In India's earliest Vedic hymns, the Shat-Kona, two interlaced triangles, signified the union of heaven and earth. Kabbalistic mystics in medieval Spain saw on the Star of David a map of creation rooted in perfect proportion. Among the Dogon people of Mali, hexagonal granaries echoed cosmic diagrams of early star birth. Though cultures varied, the underlying intuition was shared. Symmetry is not merely pleasing. It is sacred order made visible. Return now to the snowflake beneath our lens. Notice how no arm grows in isolation. Each extension mirrors its opposite, guided by identical gusts of humidity and temperature at the same instant in time. This synchronous shaping is called diffusion-limited aggregation, a phrase that might sound complex, but only means that water vapor diffuses through air to the places of greatest invitation, the branch tips. They grow longest because they are most exposed, sipping vapor before the rest can taste it, yet doing so equally on all six fronts. The result, a living record of fair distribution, of resources shared with impeccable parity. Imagine if thoughts could grow like that, each idea balanced by an equal and opposite insight, each desire shaped by the same humility guiding its twin. Harmony would arise, not from restraint, but from shared opportunity, exactly as moisture shares itself among the six outstretched arms of ice. There is, too, a faint fractal whisper inside every flake. Zoom in upon one arm, and you will find smaller repeats of the whole. Zoom further, and patterns nest again, self-similar down to the microscopic ridges where individual molecules align. Fractals remind us that the grand and the minute are reflections, that the sweep of a galaxy's spiral and the curl of a fern obey siblings of the same equation. No wonder lying beneath snowfall can feel like floating in star fields. Both are fractal hymns sung at vastly different scales. A quiet footnote from history. In 135 BCE, the Chinese scholar Han Ing compiled poetic riddles called Han Shiweizwen. One riddle asked what substance falls from heaven, has six petals, and melts in the hand. Though he lacked modern language for symmetry, he nonetheless recognized the recurrent six-petaled miracle. That small line of poetry journeys across 21 centuries to join us tonight, bridging minds through shared astonishment. Think, too, of the Islamic artisans who, forbidden by custom to carve living figures upon mosque walls, turned instead to geometry. They tiled courtyards with interlacing hexagons so complex that mathematicians only recently mapped their full non-repeating symmetries. Those glimmering tiles echo the unending possibilities within snow's six-sided frame, patterns shifting outward without repetition, infinite yet bounded by simple rules. And what of the honeybee again? Picture a worker pausing at the comb's edge, turning, measuring instinctively with antennae, then adding one more perfect wall at precisely the right angle. That unassuming insect honors the same code that sculpts our snowflake. The universe copies its blueprints freely, gifting them to water, to wax, to stone, to light itself, as seen in hexagonal halos around high-altitude clouds. Let your breath now settle into a rhythm of six, perhaps inhaling to a slow count of six, exhaling to six, so you may feel in your own chest the pulse of the pattern we praise. Each breath a silent snowflake, born, shaped, released. In this gentle practice, the mind becomes its own microclimate, cool and clear, where thoughts condense into calm crystals, drift, and dissolve. Before we depart this chapter, recall Wilson Bentley once more, the snowflake man of Vermont, who stood coat-buttoned in blizzards, coaxing six-pointed ghosts onto black velvet. Under his microscope, he whispered, no design was ever repeated. Yet he also confessed that every flake felt like an intimate friend, because, though unique, they shared a single set of rules, diversity resting comfortably within unity, A lesson the world never tires of hearing. So we close the lens, fold the velvet, and let our flake rejoin its kin in the deepening blanket outside. 6 pointed truths linger like faint starlight across the mind, illuminating paths toward inner balance and effortless awe. Let us drift now to Chapter 5, where ancient eyes, philosophers, poets, and wanderers of long ago raise lanterns beneath the first snows and wonder what wisdom might be falling from the sky. Chapter 5. Ancient Eyes Upon the Flake. Let the snowfall thicken around us until it becomes a white curtain drawn across the centuries. When it parts again, we stand on a lantern-lit bridge in 11th century Kaifeng, capital of the Northern Song. Silk-clad scholars lean over carved railings, cupping soft crystals in mittened palms. One murmurs a line from poet Lu Yuan. Snow is the brush that repaints heaven and earth in a single stroke. Another replies with a laugh. Yet each stroke is 6-petaled. They cannot know hydrogen angles, but they intuit a cosmic calligraphy at work. Across the river, tea houses glow. Inside, storytellers compare snow to ground jade, believing the flakes cleanse wayward spirits. A monk dips his brush into black ink and adds a final character to tonight's sutra: stillness. Outside, the snow obliges, muting temple gongs until they rumble like distant surf. Drift now to 8th century Nara, Japan. Wooden veranda, paper shoji slid aside. The poet Ono no Kamichi kneels in layered kimono, catching a flake upon a lacquered hairpin. Yuki, she whispers, snow, and composes a tanka on the instant. In falling silence, petals of the sky dissolve. Before I can name the color of their longing, winter lowers its eyelids. Her attendant offers steaming sake. Kamichi smiles, warms her hands, and watches the crystal vanish, as fleeting as love's first sigh. The tanka will travel on bamboo slips, recited by pilgrims who find in its 31 syllables the hush of a midnight snowfall. Now to the wind-scoured fjords of medieval Norway. Inside a timber longhouse, warriors lay down axes and gather at the hearth. Old Scald Eirik uncorks a tale of Skadi, goddess of bow and snowshoe. When Skadi stamps her silver boots, he growls. The sky shatters into ice flowers that melt only when she laughs. A child asks, does she laugh often? Eirik strokes his beard, only for the brave. Beyond the door, flakes swirl like sparks from a fire, echoing the iron clang of distant saga. Heartbeat later, we stand in ancient Athens, Stoa of Adelos, marble cool beneath sandaled feet. The philosopher Theophrastus compiles his book of weather signs. He notes that the rare hexagonal halo around the moon foretells heavy snow. No microscope graces his hand, yet he records that after such storms, olives sleep deeper, vines rest easier. Snow, he writes, is winter's physician, applying cold balm to weary earth. Southward to the high Andes, 1200 CE, Incan high priest, cloaked in vicuña wool, lifts a golden disk toward moonlit flurries atop Machu Picchu. Each flake is a feather shed by Pariakaka, deity of snow-fed rivers. Offerings of chicha splash onto stone. The priest chants that tomorrow the terraces will shimmer with new water when the flakes melt. Maize owes its sweetness to winter's cold gift. Across an ocean, centuries whirl. In the halls of Granada's Alhambra, craftsmen press turquoise, cobalt, and white tiles into tessellations so intricate they appear to ripple. Outside, rare Iberian snow drifts between orange trees. Sufi poet Ibn al-Khatib wanders beneath archways, comparing a flake to the soul, unique in pattern, surrendered in melting. He urges his students, contemplate snow, and you will know Todd, the oneness that includes all difference. Slide north again, 19th century, Quebec. A trapper named Etienne waits out a blizzard in a spruce lean-to. He recalls Mohawk friends who called powdery snow tsiaka, round the blanket of great peace. They taught him to recognize 5 snows: hunter snow, rabbit snow, maple sap snow, lullaby snow, and ghost snow. He decides tonight's is lullaby snow, the kind that hushes wolves and men alike. Drowsy, he labels flakes with invented names, whisper stars, moon crumbs, frost petals, until sleep overtakes him. Northward still, to Inuit elders on Baffin Island, a grandmother oils a sealskin boot while teaching a toddler the word cannock. Not just any snow, she explains, but the large, slow flakes that drift straight downward when the sea ice is strong. Cannock is a promise. Safe hunting, stable paths. She breathes onto a crystal, watching it shrink. Everything beautiful, she says, visits for a moment, then teaches us to look for the next moment. Spin time's compass, one last quarter turn. We reach 1611 Prague, where Kepler's quill scratches questions by candle glow. Why 6? Why never 5? In the margin he sketches tiny stars, doodles a honeycomb, wonders if snow's geometry whispers secrets about the packing of cannonballs. Outside, muffled hoofbeats ferry messengers across the Vltava Bridge, their cloaks lantern-lit with flecks that answer Kepler wordlessly. 6, 6, always 6. The centuries merge, flakes piling into a single, soft anthology. Every culture, every era, has lifted its face to winter's quiet rainfall of geometry and found purity, prophecy, play, prayer. Those meanings settle upon us now like rosy dusk upon mountains, layering until even our modern worries wear white hoods of calm. Pause. Listen. Can you hear them? The overlapping echoes of languages naming the same hush. Chinese Shua, Nahuatl Tlapatzali, Finnish Lumi, Swahili Theluji. Each word lands on the mind as differently as each flake on a mitten, yet they dissolve into the same cool silence. Let that polyglot hush fill the room. Your heartbeat aligns with hoofbeats on an old Czech bridge, with temple bells muted by Song Dynasty powder, with Incan panpipes carried on thin Andean air. History's long caravan moves past, lanterns swaying, while you rest warm beneath tonight's personal snowfall. When next we wander, myth itself will stir. We will meet Father Frost cracking silver staff upon birch bark and Morozko courting red-cheeked maidens. We will scale Olympus where Boreas, north wind, spreads feathery clouds like peacock tails. But not yet. First, breathe in the knowledge that countless eyes have loved this same slow miracle, and let their accumulated wonder draw you deeper into peace. Chapter 6. Mythic Mantles of Snow. Snow, dear dreamer, is not merely water made intricate. It is cloak and crown to a retinue of winter spirits who have walked beside humankind since our first campfires sputtered under cold moons. Tonight, we invite those quiet deities into our circle, not to startle, but to lull, to braid their legends with science until the two strands lie inseparable, warm as twin threads in a woolen mitten. Begin in the frost-ring forests of Old Russ. There, beneath cathedrals of birch and pine, Father Frost, Maros Ivanovich, steps softly. He is tall as treetop, bearded in icicles that catch starlight like crystal beads. Where his staff meets the bark of a tree, silver rime blossoms outward with a gentle crackle. Yet contrary to fearful folk tales, Father Frost is no tyrant. He is steward. His touch seals sap so trunks will not split, laces rabbit fur thicker, hushes insects into eggshell slumber. Villagers, hearing branches ping at midnight, whisper, Moros is mending the woods. Across these same snows wends Morozko of Slavic fireside lore, a figure sometimes stern, sometimes kind. In one tale, he tests a humble maiden abandoned in the forest by a jealous stepmother. Finding the girl courteous even in peril, he wraps her in a mantle of warm blue frost. Crystals drift from his mitts like down feathers, layering until one is gone and gratitude remains. The next dawn, the girl is discovered alive and radiant, cheeks aglow with winter roses, a reminder that cold can carry blessing for those who greet it with grace. Now lift north into Scandinavia, where Scotty, huntress of the snows, glides upon bone-carved skis across sweeping plateaus. The aurora flickers above her like ribbons torn from dawn and stitched into night. Scotty's laughter is a scarce treasure. Mountains echo it only when the first thick powder grants elk and links fresh pathways. Norse parents once told children that if you listened just after sunset, You might hear Scotty tightening her bowstring. The twang heralds tomorrow's sledding snow. Far from fearsome, she is embodiment of vigor within stillness, motion inside hush. Eastward, over Siberian steppe, dwell the Evenki tales of Chiskin, Lord of Cold. He arrives riding a white reindeer, cloak woven from Arctic clouds. With him he bears 3 keys, one to lock lakes, one to lock rivers, and one most tender, to lock human quarrels beneath a clean sheet of ice. Elders say that during the months Chiskin walks the land, arguments freeze in throats. Words emerge slowly, considered soft. By spring thaw, many disputes have melted altogether. Imagine that cold as mediator, snow as peace treaty. Now the wind curls south toward classical Greece, where Boreas, the north wind, courts the land with feathered wings. Poets pictured him in swirling cloak, cheeks puffed as he breathes clouds of snow across Thrace. He fathers 2 sparkling mares who gallop over sea spray, their hooves striking waves into white plumes that resemble drifting flakes. Mariners honored Boreas with garlands, trusting his brisk gales to speed triremes, yet keep icebergs at a courteous distance. In every gust that rattles an olive grove's silver leaves, one hears Boreas reciting ancient epics of winter's power and renewal. Travel next to MT Helicon, where the muse Urania once traced constellations in star-crusted snow, guiding shepherds home by frozen starlight underfoot as well as overhead. For Greeks, snow doubled the heavens. Sky's milky sprawl mirrored upon ground. So every step blurred earth and cosmos, waking and dream. Tonight, perhaps, your blanket is such a mirror, soft firmament spanning bed to horizon of thought, inviting voyaging souls of imagination. Slide now across sea and century to feudal Japan. On moon-paled roads draped in cedar shadows moves Yuki-Onna, the snow woman. She appears in a swirl of powder, kimono woven from drifting flakes, hair long as nightfall. Frightening legends warn she exhales cold enough to lull travelers into eternal sleep. Yet kindertellings describe her pausing beside lonely woodcutters, placing a hand cool but gentle upon fevered brows, whispering them into healing rest. Either way, her presence is lullaby incarnate, breath turning air to mist, mist to crystals, crystals to hush. When children in the mountain hamlet spot unusually large snowflakes, they cry. Yuki-Onna combs her hair, because each flake resembles a comb's white tooth fallen from the sky. Think of it the next time broad dendrites settle on your coat sleeve. The snow woman has passed, leaving traces of her pale adornment as blessings of calm. Follow trade winds to the highlands of the Maya, where the rain and frost goddess Ixtab quenches maize with cloud milk. Though snow is rare in Yucatan lowlands, the peaks of Chiapas receive what locals call white rain. Elders say Ixtab pulverizes limestone stars, scatters the dust so crops may sip skystone and grow sturdy. When a pinch of sleet surprises a cornfield, farmers greet it with laughter, proof their mountain sister goddess remembers them. South again to the Andes, we meet Pachamama's snow-draped messenger, Urkachutta. He carries a sling woven of alpaca wool and stardust, from which he flings handfuls of powder onto Cordillera summits, sealing glacial reservoirs for next summer's irrigation. Without his nightly labors, say Quechua storytellers, the sacred valley would parch. Thus every flake is both promise and provision, a banknote deposited in nature's icy savings for seasons yet to bloom. Cross the Pacific to Aotearoa, New Zealand, where Maori legends speak of Hyne-Hukatir, maiden of the snows. She loved to climb mountains, so high that clouds twined around her ankles, like anklets. One day, her mortal lover toss slipped and fell. In grief, Hyne-Hukatir wept rivers of tears, which to Wiramadia, god of winds, froze into the dazzling Franz Joseph Glacier. Each snowfall renews her mourning yet polishes her memory, layering sorrow into beauty. Snow, then, is devotion in slow motion, love compressed into crystalline time. Circle north once more to the Arctic's luminous night. In Yupik lore, an invisible spirit named Negafuk wanders storms, carving hollows in drifts for polar bears to birth cubs. Hunters, hearing distant breathing within a whiteout, refrain from throwing spears. They know Negafuk is near, shaping warmth out of cold. Pause and marvel. Even in civilizations where survival depends on mastering the freeze, cold itself is honored as architect of life. Now step briefly into the pages of Hans Christian Andersen, whose Snow Queen glides in a sleigh pulled by snow-white horses with icicle-tinkling bells. On her shards of enchanted mirror lodge in a boy's eye, he sees only imperfection, until love melts the splinters. Andersen's fairy tale reminds us that snow can obscure truth when fear guides us, yet the same cold, met with compassion, refracts into prisms of renewed clarity. Notice, dreamer, how every myth gives cold a personality that both tests and tends. Winter spirits demand mindfulness, insisting we respect fires, share blankets, store grain, but they also grant gifts. Clean water, rich soil, brilliant silence in which stories can be heard. Think of them now gathering about your bedside like a gentle parliament of frost. Father Frost rests his silver staff by the door. Yuki-Onna wafts a cool hand over your brow, easing feverish thoughts. Scotty leaves a pair of cedar-scented pine cones, tokens of stamina. Boreas suspends the faintest northern lights behind your curtains, green lace to guard your dreams. They do not speak. Their language is drift and hush. Yet you understand. Sleep is the pilgrimage they offer. Rest the mountain they guide you over. Dawn the temple they prepare. Let their mythic mantles settle on your shoulders, weightless, bright, woven of countless cultures, awe. Feel the layered warmth that paradoxically arrives with tales of ice. Even as temperature drops outside, a hearth of meaning glows within, fueled by stories older than any hearthstone. Soon we will open the door of time again and step into Wilson Bentley's 19th century barn, where cameras click like tiny clockwork owls, immortalizing lace in glass plates. But linger a moment more in the company of deities and legends. Listen for the softest chime, perhaps an icicle tapping eve, or a wind bell frozen in mid-peal. That is the sound of myth reminding you that science may explain the flake, but story invites it to stay. When your next breath drifts out, release any tension still clinging like stubborn frost to window corners of the mind. Inhale, and feel the air arrive as pure as snowlit starlight. Exhale, and picture a plume of shimmering powder leaving chimney tops, curling into the sky where new legends will one day be born. Chapter 7. Wilson Bentley's Camera of Wonders. The lantern above Jericho, Vermont, flickers in a January dusk, 1885. Farmyards lie silver-white, fences muffled, until only their posts show like punctuation in a vast blank paragraph. A lanky 19-year-old, Wilson Alwyn Bentley, buttons his wool coat at the collar and steps from the warmth of his family's kitchen into crystalline twilight. Hear the door latch click, feel the eddy of cold that follows him. Notice how the hush outdoors is deeper than any hush indoors could ever be. Wilson pauses, tilts his head back, and lets a flurry settle on his fringe of chestnut hair. Even then, before cameras, before fame, he cannot resist studying each flake's fleeting geometry. He will later confess in his diary, "I found the flakes so beautiful that I wished I could keep them. But of course they would melt." Tonight, however, he carries a plan the size of a shoebox, a bellows camera, secondhand, bolted to an old microscope his mother ordered from a mail-order catalog for $6. Between barn and woodshed, he has cleared a little bench, draped it in black velvet. Velvet drinks stray light, offers gentle perch to falling lace. More importantly, it slows melting by whisking warmth away from the crystal. Each velvet thread is like a tiny winter road on which a flake may rest, proud and intact, a moment longer. Picture young Wilson leaning close, breath held so the fog of his lungs will not blur the flake. In one gloved hand he holds a slender splint of cedar, its tip trimmed to a hair-fine edge. With practiced patience, he coaxes a single snowflake onto the splint, transfers it to the velvet, nudges it beneath the microscope lens, and, click, releases the shutter. glass plate, coated in balsam collodion, captures a 1/60th second sketch of ice artistry. He works by lantern and instinct. Exposure too long, and the flake's contours blur. Too short, and it ghosts away faint as sap smoke. He fails hundreds of times before success. Yet the failures do not frustrate him. They lull him deeper into an intimate acquaintance with cold, with patience, with the fleetingness that governs all lovely things. By the age of 20, Bentley has produced the world's first photomicrograph of a snow crystal. News drifts outward like thaw water through spring furrows. Scientists write from Boston, from London, requesting prints. Snowflake Bentley becomes a nickname stitched with equal parts affection and skepticism. After all, can a farm boy truly make science of frost? Bentley smiles, turns another glass plate, and lets the flakes answer. For 40 winters, he repeats the ritual. Some nights, he waits hours for a single suitable crystal. Other storms grant him a flake every breath. He documents temperature, humidity, wind, direction in tidy notebooks, politely noting, the most intricate designs occur near 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Beside each note, he pastes the picture: a 6-armed dendrite, a spear-thin needle, a capped column like a microscopic lantern. Imagine him again, decades later. Hair now white as the flakes he courts. The barn creaks, kerosene flame sputters, but his hands remain steady. Outside, the world tumbles toward the 20th century roar: telephone, locomotive, electric lamplight. But inside this small sanctuary, time is slowed to the rhythm of drifting powder. Every shutter click is a heartbeat. Every crystal a pressed flower in winter's herbarium. And no snowflake, he writes in block letters across one glass slide, was ever duplicated. The phrase will travel to classrooms, to greeting cards, to cafe chalkboards on first snow mornings. Yet Bentley goes on, adding a second less remembered sentence. Yet each one is symmetrical, obeying natural law. Diversity and order, freedom and rule. Twin truths inside a speck of ice. Truths that lull the mind toward equilibrium. Pause now and imagine you are holding one of Bentley's plates up to a window. Street lamplight leaks through the emulsion, revealing a lace so fine it seems woven of moonbeams. Realize that the crystal you study melted more than a century ago. Its water likely cycled through rivers, clouds, perhaps another snowfall that fell upon your own childhood mitten. Time is a loop of quiet miracles. Bentley's archive eventually numbers over 5,000 images. He mails sets to universities free of charge, convinced knowledge should travel unbarred. In 1931, he publishes Snow Crystals, a folio heavy as a family Bible, pages filled corner to corner with white stars on black fields. He writes in the preface, "The snow crystals come to us not only to reveal the wondrous beauty of the minute in nature, but to teach us that all earthly beauty is fleeting, yet worth beholding." 2 weeks after the book's release, he treks into a blizzard to photograph what he calls exquisite stellar crystals. Returning home soaked, he catches pneumonia and passes away in the same upstairs bedroom where he once assembled his first microscope. The local paper writes, "Snowflake Bentley dies of a sickness contracted while mastering a snowstorm." Friends say he would have smiled. What gentler way to depart than into the very hush he loved? Tonight, his plates rest in climate-controlled archives, but their calm radiance filters through digital screens, museum posters, winter-themed pajamas, even the tiny foil stickers sealing holiday envelopes. Somewhere a child presses one such sticker onto lined notebook paper, tracing each branch with a fingertip. Bentley's lens still guides new eyes into quiet awe, long after his lantern gutters dark. Let that thought settle in your chest. A single life's patience can ripple outward for centuries, snowballing wonder, soft, silent, unstoppable. Your own small acts of noticing, pausing to watch flakes swirl in the porch light, listening to the hush between footfalls, join that lineage of quiet attention. In the ledger of calm, every moment truly seen is a deposit that earns compound peace. Breathe, feel how your shoulders melt toward the mattress the way a flake, gently warmed, melts into velvet. Perhaps Wilson Bentley's spirit pauses at your window now, tipping an invisible hat before moving on to the next lamplit street, still collecting, still admiring. If so, may his devotion dust your dreams with intricate hush. With the camera's shutter softly stilled, we mosey toward Chapter 8, where a sleeping forest waits beneath its crystalline quilt, each bough a harpstring of frost. There we will listen to the tiny creaks, the sighs, the muffled lullaby that trees and snow compose together through the night. Chapter 8. The Sleeping Forest and its Crystalline Choir. Imagine a lantern floating just ahead of us, its wick turned low, so the flame neither startles deer nor melts the snow lace that crowns each limb. Follow its honey glow along a narrow path into the forest. With every step, the outside world, road, roof, rumor, falls away like the muffled toll of a distant bell. What remains is wood-scented stillness, thick as down, bright as pearl. The canopy above is a vaulted silence. Spruce, fir, and hemlock interlace their evergreen arms, each bough quilted in powder. Needles bend under glistening weight yet do not snap. They have practiced this slow yoga for centuries. Now and then a clump of snow releases, sighing through air to land with a thump soft as mittened applause. Pause where two ancient cedars form a gate. Rest your palm against bark cool as riverstone. Feel the faint throb of sap sheltered from frost by insulating layers of cambium and cork. Trees, like bears, slow their breathing in winter. They sip stored sugars, let chlorophyll nap beneath pigmented quilts. Only trace amounts of energy hum through xylem. Yet that hum is enough to keep life poised, like a candle sheltered in cupped hands. Listen closely. Beneath hush, the forest sings. Snow, an acoustic veil, tidy sound into delicate tatters. A far-off raven croaks, its call softened until it resembles a bassoon warming up. An icicle, lengthening by fractions, releases a crystalline ping as inner stress relaxes. Somewhere a red squirrel tunnels under powder, the scratch of its claws translated into whispers through insulating snow. Scientists call this dampened resonance porous absorption. New fallen snow traps waves in labyrinthine pores where they bounce, lose energy, and finally sink into silence. Thus, a forest in midwinter becomes nature's quietest concert hall, an anechoic chamber open to starshine. Settle onto a moss-padded, stump-dusted white. As you exhale, see the faint plume drift upward, mingle with dry air, and vanish. That small cloud is rich with water vapor. Given altitude and chill, it could become the seed of a future snowflake. Your breath, a prelude to tomorrow's weather. Above, moonlight threads through branches, strikes facets of distant flakes still descending. Each reflects a needle-thin beam that flits between trunks, so the forest twinkles like a quiet galaxy turned on its side. Joyce, on an evening walk, once called such winter light heaven's dust motes. Tonight, we are seated among them, readers inside an unwritten chapter of sky. Now, tilt your attention downward to the forest floor. Beneath 6 inches of powder, a city of slumbering roots waits. The snowpack, though cold to your hand, is warm relative to the brittle night above. It insulates soil at about 0 degrees Celsius, sparing earthworms and beetle larvae from lethal cold. Botanists speak of this blanket as the subnivean zone, a hidden corridor where mice weave tunnels, where foxes' ears swivel to catch hushed scurries. Life persists, soft-footed and unseen. You might ask, do trees dream? Dendrologists measuring overnight movements with lasers discovered that branches drop slightly at dusk, rising again come dawn, as though the whole forest exhales, sleeps, and stretches upon waking. Perhaps the droop you observe above, snow-laden arms bowed, mirrors your own shoulders releasing tension as night deepens. Somewhere near, a brook murmurs beneath a lid of ice. Water hurries in black ribbons, unfreezable thanks to constant motion and latent geothermal warmth. Air holes along the channel exhale faint steam. Rim crystals grow outward, linking into a filigree that mirrors the lacework of overhead branches. One pattern in liquid, one in solid, both reciting the hexagonal poem of water. Take a slow breath, 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. Feel the rhythm sync with drip, drip, drip of meltwater from a high pine needle. Each droplet falls in measured intervals, striking the snow below with the shy click of a silver thimble. Your pulse, once metronome of daytime duty, now follows that easy cadence. While you sit, the woods compose a micro-symphony of thermal contractions. Trunks creak as cellulose fibers tighten. Frozen sap pockets release soft pops. The snowpack itself settles with muffled squeaks. Thermodynamically, these are pressure equalizations. But to the relaxed ear, they are lullabies, notes of reassurance that the forest, though sleeping, is very much alive. A legend from the Penobscot people says each winter tree hosts a tiny spirit who counts snowflakes until the number matches last summer's leaves. Only then may spring begin, whether literal or metaphor. The idea invites us to imagine snow as ledger, forest as accountant, seasons as balanced equations. Tonight, countless spirits are busy adding crystalline sums while you need only rest and listen. Now picture yourself shrinking, taking the place of a single snowflake on a fir bough. Your crystalline arms clutch green needles, sparkling under moonbeam. Gravity nudges, but surface tension holds. An ephemeral partnership. You feel vibrations travel the branch when a distant owl lands, then lifts off in pursuit of scurrying prey. The tremor passes through your lattice like a wind chime's kiss, purer than any alarm clock's ring. From this tiny vantage, you witness hoarfrost forming along needle edges, water vapor skipping the liquid phase to deposit directly as ice. Minute swords of frost grow outward, each new molecule aligning perfectly with the last. This solid-to-solid transition is called deposition, an act of sculpting performed silently at a molecular easel by nothing more than temperature and time. Farther into the stand, 2 deer pick their careful way between drifts, muzzles dusted white. Their hooves compress snow into glossy prints that will harden overnight, becoming negative casts of wandering. Come spring, meltwater will pour into those hoof cups, hydrating new shoots of fern. Thus, tonight's sighing step is tomorrow's green. Allow that promise to warm you. Every quiet present shelters a lively future. Even as your limbs grow heavy with relaxation, some part of you, memory, hope, stores energy for a later blossom. Above, the moon reaches zenith. Tree shadows lie exactly north-south along the snow, needles drawing slow calligraphy that only owls and you can read. The words? Be still, be still, be still. A triptych of hush etched by lunar ink. Slowly we rise, brush powder from our coat, and follow the faint lantern beam back toward clearing's edge. Ahead lies Chapter 9, where we will lean in upon the very texture of silence, discovering how snow sculpts sound, how frost whistles faint flutes, how lakes crack in baritone blooms beneath the ice. But before we leave the sleeping forest, close your eyes and etch this image inside. Pin drop hush, pearl moon filtering through spruce lace, breath puffing tiny clouds that may seed tomorrow's flakes. Return to it whenever life grows loud. It will always stand evergreen, awaiting your quiet footfall. Chapter 9, Snow's Secret Songs of Sound. Step with me now from the still forest into an even subtler realm, the realm of winter's music, where every note hides beneath hush the way pearls hide in oysters. At first you may think snow is silent, yet listen a little longer, and you will hear an orchestra tuned to a scale of frost. Begin with the simplest instrument, your boot upon new powder. At moderate cold, say just below freezing, each step lands with a muted fuff, like a gentle drummer patting a snare with cloth. But drop the temperature to -10 degrees Celsius, and the tune changes. Suddenly your stride produces a crisp squeak, as though thousands of tiny glass beads shatter then knit together at once. Physicists explain that colder snow crystals are stiffer and more willing to break. The squeak is their microfractures resonating in chorus. Walk a woodland trail at -20 degrees Celsius, and you may swear you're strolling upon a field of hidden clarinets, each crunch a high-pitched trill fading into timber hush. Now stoop, scoop a handful of snow, and compress it into a ball. Hear that faint hiss? Air trapped between flakes is escaping through narrow channels, much like steam sighing from a kettle. Only quieter, cooler, an exhale of winter itself. Inuit children once called this sound the whisper of the polar bear, believing Nanak lent his breath to every snowball tossed in play. Slide downhill on a toboggan and listen to runners hum. Friction warms the surface just enough to create a paper-thin film of meltwater, which behaves like a violin string rubbed sideways by the bow of speed. The pitch rises as velocity climbs, drops as you slow, making each ride a fleeting glissando etched into cold air. Turn now to the forest we just left. Under intense cold, tree trunks emit sudden cracks, sharp, hollow pops that echo like distant musket fire. These are frost cracks, birthed when outer wood contracts faster than inner rings, tearing fibers that have grown rigid and glassy. Loggers in the Yukon swear those cracks form a language. They call a volley of pops a timber gossip, the forest sharing nightly tales of stress and stamina. Move onward to open fields, where wind sculpts powder into sastrugi, rippled ridges whose edges rasp beneath gales like giant sandpaper. Stand a moment and you'll hear an eerie low whistle, the same note played by wind against bottle rims. Only here the bottles are millions of microscopic tunnels between grains. And when gusts slacken, the whistle dims to a sigh, reminding ears that absence is also music. Approach a frozen lake at dusk. Beneath the ice, water cools, expands, then abruptly contracts, sending stress fractures darting like lightning trapped onto glass. Each fracture releases energy that travels through ice as acoustic waves. The listener hears pinging POWs, deep booms, and alien whoops that swoop across octaves in seconds. Arctic explorers recorded these sounds on wax cylinders in 1910, describing them as banjo twangs strummed by invisible giants. Today, seismologists analyze their frequencies to gauge ice thickness, but to anyone padding across the surface, they are winter's cosmic jazz, improvised, resonant, unforgettable. In alpine villages, avalanches once served as the timpani of mountains. Shepherds could tell by timbre whether a distant rumble signaled surface snow shearing, a soft thud, or a deep, dangerous slab release, a growling roar that seemed to shake marrow itself. Knowing the difference was life-saving knowledge passed by fathers to daughters through nighttime humming games. Hum the rumble, guess the slide. Thus, mountains taught rhythm, and rhythm taught survival. Even individual snowflakes have their note. Were we to drop a flake onto a superfine membrane inside a laboratory vacuum, we'd hear a frequency too high for human ears, ultrasonic shimmering, like the ring of an impossibly tiny bell. Multiply that bell by 1 billion and slow down, and perhaps the snowfall's grand chord is what lullabies your heart tonight. Now let us explore human attempts to borrow winter's instruments. In the remote village of Luleå, Sweden, artisans carve xylophones from clear lake ice each February. Struck with birch mouths, the bars emit tones pure as crystal champagne glasses tapped after vows. Performers must play swiftly. The warmth of hands and lights melts keys by the minute, detuning them. Every concert becomes a meditation on impermanence. Music that literally slips away as it is born. On Norway's tundra, architect-musician Tarja Isingset sculpts trumpets of glacier ice. During midnight concerts beneath auroras, he breathes through the bore, producing murmurs halfway between horn and wail. Audience members wrap in reindeer hides, cups of hot lingonberry tea steaming while they listen to notes melt, drip, vanish, sound dissolving into its own silence. Return at last to your warm room. Perhaps a radiator ticks softly, metal contracting as water flow pauses. Outside, flakes tap the window in irregular meters, reminiscent of rain but gentler, more hesitant, as if asking permission before offering their rhythm. When one flake sticks, you hear nothing. When 1,000 cling at once, there is a faint velvety rustle, easy to miss unless you practice mindful listening. Let us practice now. Close your eyes. Inhale through nose 4 counts. Hold. Release over 6, ears open. In the quiet after the exhale, identify the smallest sound in the room. Maybe the pulse in your own eardrum. Maybe the crackle of cooling wood. Maybe nothing but the roar of silence itself. Whatever you find, imagine it cushioned by snow, each decibel caught, softened, sent back gentler. This is auditory snowfall, wrapping the world in felt so worries can no longer clang. In many monasteries, novices sweep courtyards after snowfall, not to clear paths, but to amplify stillness. Their brooms etch shallow furrows that shape how sound travels, allowing chants to flow unbroken from lip to wall to sky. A single gong struck in such a cleared space resonates twice as long, the note hovering like incense. Snow is not obstacle, but amplifier of holiness. That holiness need not reside only in cloisters. Tonight, if you open a window, you might hear distant traffic subdued to a gentle hush, as though engines were lulled by the season. The city becomes a sleeping animal, breathing slow, peaceful breaths. Each breath is mirrored by yours. You are both citizen and monk, participant and witness in snow's acoustic sacrament. Before we close this chapter, imagine dawn arriving. Sunlight touches rooftops, and snow begins its slow alchemy back to water. Melt drip becomes metronome, gutters turn to xylophones, and rooftops exhale tiny avalanches that swish like pages turned in a giant book. Birds test notes, first tentative, then confident, layering treble over percussion. In this evolutionary hour, winter's music modulates from nocturne to morning prelude, a promise that cycles continue, that silence bears fruit, that every hush ends in song. Hold that assurance close. Let each heartbeat now echo the snow's own cadence, soft, steady, spacious. As you slip deeper toward dream, your mind will go on hearing these secret songs, though your waking ears rest. Trust them to keep tempo until you greet the real melodies of dawn. Chapter 10. Drifting Toward Dawn. Night has thinned to its palest silk. Stars fade like candle stubs, and somewhere beyond the dark treeline, a hidden horizon begins to bloom, the faintest shade of rose gray. We have traveled far this evening, from cosmic dust and cloud-forged crystals to mythic deities, whispering forests, and the secret music of ice. Now, in these last hush-filled minutes before sunrise, let us gather every drifting image into a single gentle breath. Imagine you are hovering high above a snow-blanketed valley. Below, rooftops appear as if brushed with powdered sugar. River curves sparkle, frozen in quiet arabesque. The forest we visited lies deep in pearl shadow. All is still, yet not inert. Within every drift, molecules sway, preparing for the day's first warmth. A soft wind carries you lower, past chimneys exhaling feathery spirals of steam. Each plume twists skyward, mingling with early light, turning gold at the edges. You hear, faint but clear, the punctual crack of ice on the lake, answering dawn's expanding light like a resonant gong. Touch down beside a solitary birch. The tree's bark gleams silver pink where sunrise grazes it. Droplets form along twig tips, one crystalline bead at a time, each holding the whole horizon inside its curved lens. When a bead finally loosens and falls, you can almost hear a microscopic chiming, water's quiet applause for the returning sun. Let your mind travel through snow's inner corridors now. Picture the subnivean world we spoke of, a mouse waking in its tunnel, whiskers twitching, sensing heat above. See how the tunnel ceiling glows the faintest peach as daylight filters through powder. In a few more hours, meltwater will trickle down, nourishing hidden roots, readying seeds for spring's eventual command. Thus, even this deep stillness hums with becoming. Far above, the clouds you visited at the journey's start drift westward, their undersides coral-tinged. You know their secret workshops, know that inside them new crystals are already assembling. Tomorrow night's lullaby in rehearsal. Breathe in and let the scent of dawn-cooled snow fill your lungs. Clean, faintly mineral promising. Breathe out and feel the last flecks of wakefulness glide away like flakes completing their descent. Here, on the border of sleep and day, time stretches. A minute can become a meadow, a heartbeat, a hush. If thoughts arise, plans, tasks, lingering questions, watch them melt as Bentley's flakes melted on velvet. Briefly bright, then peacefully becoming part of a larger calm. In the east, the sun's rim lifts, a thin coin of light edging upward. Rays fracture through arching crystals in the cold air, conjuring a brief halo, a sundog, faint but perfect, echoing the six-pointed symmetry we have come to love. A final gift from physics and wonder intertwined. Now retreat from the birch, drift backward across the valley, up, up, until your vantage settles beside your own quiet window. Curtains glow with newborn light. But inside this room night lingers, just long enough to cradle sleep. The bed beneath you is warm earth, the blanket above a private snowfall. Every slow breath, a page turned in winter's gentle book. Remember, snow is the universe practicing tenderness. It has folded starlight, water, and time into patterns so delicate they vanish at a fingertip's warmth, yet layered together. They hush cities, feed rivers, and cool the fevered mind. May that tenderness abide with you now. May it carry you into dreams latticed with calm, dreams that drift like flawless crystals through a sky of limitless rest. The first bird sends up a tentative note. Somewhere a coffee pot clicks on in a neighboring house. Let these be distant shores. You, dear listener, are still upon the tranquil sea of night, the hull of sleep steady beneath you. Stay as long as you wish. The story, like snow, expects no hurry. And when at last you rise, whether in minutes or at midday, may you step into morning as a fresh fallen field, spotless, quiet, ready to record new footprints of joy. Sleep well. Dream in six-pointed symmetry. And remember, whenever the world feels loud, the serene science of snow is never farther than the hush between two breaths. Final drift. And so the last flake settles, night folds its silver quilt. Your breathing and the quiet earth move in one slow tide. The tale is told, yet its hush lingers. In the soft weight of your blankets. In the cool hush between heartbeats. In the hidden promise that every moment, everywhere, somewhere a snowflake is still beginning. Hold that promise gently. Let it carry you past the threshold of waking, into dreams white and weightless, where time itself drifts like powder across an endless, peaceful field. Sleep deeply, dream kindly, wander far. When morning finds you, may you rise refreshed, footprints ready to write new stories upon your own fresh fallen day. Good night, dear listener. The snow keeps watch,